Nobody warns you about the first time life hands you a real bill. Not a math problem, not a worksheet, a real bill with our names on it. And in that moment, a lot of us realized something uncomfortable. We were trained to pass tests, but not trained to handle life. You see it in small moments. We memorize formulas, write essays, and take exams, assuming the more important life skills will somehow just click after graduation, but they don't. You see it in small moments. A student gets their first debit card and suddenly realizes they don't know the difference between a credit score and a bank balance. Someone moves into a dorm and suddenly realizes they don't know how to do laundry and Google's how to do laundry for the first time. Or a teenager gets their first job, opens their first paycheck, and has no idea what half the deductions mean. These aren't failures of intelligence. They're moments where students realize something important. No one has ever taught them the skills that real life requires. School does an incredible job teaching us academic content, how to analyze what we read, write for different audiences, and solve complex problems. But it doesn't always teach us how to financially plan for college, take care of ourselves, manage everyday responsibilities, or even change a car tire. The truth is, many young people step into adulthood unprepared. Not because they didn't work hard, but because no one has ever taught them the skills that actually show up in real life, like managing money, taking care of a home, or handling pressure, failure, and responsibility. Today I want to talk about 3 skills we desperately need but rarely learn in school, and why learning them earlier can completely change how young people step into adulthood. Let's start with money. We leave school knowing how to solve equations, but not necessarily how to manage money. Financial education has been part of the school's curriculum for over a decade. Studies from TEDxSRDS Institute found that 1 in 4 young adults in the United States report actually receiving meaningful financial education in school, and the gap shows up immediately. Research from the National Financial Educators Council found that 80% of young adults have never created a budget, have never paid a bill on their own, and most don't have any emergency savings. When I shared my research with my math teacher, Mr. Mack, he paused and said,
"Well, that's the first thing we should have taught you."
He was right. What's even more concerning is there are many young people are getting their information. 1 in 3 Gen Z adults turn to social media for financial advice, with platforms like TikTok filling the gap left by a real lack of financial education. National data backs this up. Studies from the TIAA Institute found that Gen Z has the lowest financial literacy of any generation, answering only 38% of financial questions, basic financial questions, correctly. Adults with very low financial literacy are twice as likely to struggle with debt, and 3 times more likely to struggle financially and not be financially stable. That's why financial literacy shouldn't be optional. Several states, including Florida, Michigan, and New Jersey, have already started requiring financial literacy courses for high school graduation. Expanding these programs nationwide could ensure that every student gets to learn the basics of budgeting, credit, taxes, or saving before they sign their first lease, open their first credit card, or take on their first loan. Because financial literacy shouldn't begin after adulthood starts. It should prepare our students for it. But managing money is only one part of independence. Practical life skills. Practical life skills like cooking and cleaning and basic life organizations are essential for independence. So, you have a moment where you're standing in the kitchen. Something is burning. You're not sure how much soap is too much soap. And suddenly you think, wait, was I supposed to already know this? For decades, schools taught these skills for home economics, now known as family and consumer sciences. These classes covered everything from cooking and nutrition to cleaning, budgeting, and balancing work and home life skills. Student participation in FCS programs dropped 38% in just 10 years. Not because they weren't useful, but because schools changed. As academic requirements increased, schools added standardized test preparation, college counseling programs, AP classes, and businesses like this that existed decades ago. As Gail Arredondo from the Kansas State Department of Education explained, anything that wasn't about a test score was scrutinized, and that has real consequences. Susan Turgeson, president of the Association for Teachers and Educators for Family and Consumer Sciences, explained that teachers now have to demonstrate things many people assume that are common sense, like how to wash dishes or how to write a letter. I've seen this play out with people my age. Students who are smart, motivated, and capable, suddenly Googling basic tasks in the middle of the day because no one has ever taught them. Not because students aren't capable, but because no one has ever taught them how. There's also a misconception that these classes are outdated. Old home economics was tied to gender roles, but modern SCS isn't about preparing someone to be the perfect spouse. It's about preparing someone to function in everyday life. One educator described the goal perfectly. Today's courses teach nutrition literacy, sustainable eating, personal finance, healthy relationships, and independence. One educator described the goal perfectly. Life isn't about perfection. It's about knowing that if you mess up, you can recover. Burn the food, cut off the edges. Overcook the meat, it's still edible. Make a mistake in life, you learn and move forward. Financial literacy helps us manage our resources. Practical life skills helps us manage our independence. But there's a third set of skills that help us determine how we handle everything else life throws at us. Social and emotional skills, like emotional regulation, adaptability, and communication, are just as important as academic knowledge, yet these skills are rarely taught, especially in schools. We spend years learning how to analyze text, write essays, and solve problems, but very little time learning how to handle stress, how to communicate under pressure, or how to work with people who think, act, or feel differently than we do. In 2023, the OECD conducted an international study called the Survey of Adult Skills. And what they found was clear. Social and emotional skills don't just support success, they predict it. Skills like emotional stability, adaptability, and communication are strongly linked to education, health, job success, and life satisfaction, even beyond reading and writing. These skills strengthen academics. They don't replace them. Yet students are told to be professional, work well with others, and handle pressure without ever being shown how. So when stress hits or failure shows up, people assume that they're bad at life instead of realizing they were never taught the tools. Okay, imagine going through school getting strong grades without struggling. School starts to feel like something you're naturally good at. Then you take your first AP class. Suddenly the work is harder. The grades change. Instead of thinking, this is something I can learn from, it starts to feel like something is wrong with you. That's why social and emotional skills deserve a place in our classroom just as much as anything on the test. When we think about education, we usually ask, what do students need to know? But maybe the better question is, what do students need to live? Academic knowledge matters. Financial literacy helps us survive. Practical life skills helps us manage our resources and helps us function. But social and emotional skills teach us how to show up for our jobs, our communities, and ourselves. These skills aren't extra. They aren't optional. They're foundational. So here's a shift I want us to make. If you're a student, advocate for these classes. If you're a teacher or an administrator, protect them. And if you are a parent, start teaching them early, because the goal of education shouldn't be that we panic. The goal should be that we're ready. Because schools shouldn't only prepare us for exams, they should prepare us for life. Thank you.